Oh yes, Jeffrey, we're talking food right now, because food is important. After or before you talk stocks, before you talk investment, you have to invest in your stomach, right? Invest in your body. And that's why we're starting with this very fundamental need. We have joining us on the program, Peggy Maimaji, who is a project coordinator at Oxfam in Nigeria, joining us from our Abuja studio. Good morning, Peggy. You're welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning.
We want to focus on ending food poverty yet again. This is a conversation we've been very consistent with, Peggy, and I want to see how far we can take this on the show this morning. I was looking at the Oxfam's report. By the way, Oxfam, in case you're wondering, is named after the Oxford Committee for Famine Relief. And I was looking at that report, Takers Not Makers, which said that billionaire wealth has risen 3 times faster in 2024. In fact, we're expecting 5 trillionaires globally now. Sadly, the situation has remained the same for poor people. So there's an unfair distribution of wealth and unfair distribution of poverty, if there's anything like that. So this conversation around making rights to food a thing, is it really possible, seeing that it doesn't look like poverty is going anywhere soon, at least globally and in Nigeria, Peggy?
It's possible, but you see, to make that happen, first of all, we need to put our money where our mouth is. We need to simply invest in agriculture. If you look at, the reports that you spoke about, you would notice that the poverty rate in Nigeria is extremely high. We are in extreme poverty, to say that 63% of Nigerians are poor. That is more than half of our populations are not just poor, they are extremely poor. Now, what that means is that 63% of Nigerians do not have food on their tables. How do we solve that problem? If we want to implement the Right to Food Act that was just passed in 2023, we need to invest in agriculture, because that act simply says that the government is the chief duty bearer. They have the right, they have the responsibility to provide food for the citizens. If we're not setting aside the budget to do that, it's simply not going to be possible. Now let's look at our 2025 agriculture budget. Comparing it with the budget for 2024, you would notice that there's a sharp drop in the allocation for agriculture, when we're actually supposed to be investing more in agriculture. Last year, the allocation for agriculture was about 990 something billion naira. And then this year, it has dropped to 600 and I think about 63 billion naira or so. That's a sharp drop. And when you're talking about budgeting and investments in agriculture, we have a benchmark that we are supposed to work with. And that benchmark is the CADEP protocol. It says that budget allocations should be a minimum of 10% of your expenditure. And as of this year, we're doing about 1.2% of our total expenditure. That is poor. Now that begs the question, how are we going to address, how are we even going to implement the Right to Food Act, along with all the other beautiful policies that we have, like the NATI policy and even the Ministry of Agriculture has a gender policy that just specifically addresses the needs of smallholder women farmers and speaks to mainstreaming it into the activities of the Ministry of Agriculture. How are we going to implement all of these beautiful policies if we're not even able to set aside, the basic amount of money that we need to support these implementations? So yes, it is possible to get rid of food poverty. It is possible to reduce food poverty. It is possible to reduce inequality in Nigeria. But to do that, we need to be willing to put our money where our mouth is. We need to be willing to put our investments and channel them in the right direction. And
that's very important, Peggy. Thankfully, I don't know, it's still very debatable right now. The president increased the budget by 4.5 trillion naira, and part of that increase is expected to go to agriculture and other sectors. So maybe we might just see a bump in what is allocated to agriculture. But hey, maybe, a very big maybe. But looking at that report deeper, you see that I love the optimism you share, but looking at the trends, it looks like this is now a system. It's been institutionalized. So if you will have to reverse it, it will take a lot of strength. But I want us to focus on Nigeria because obviously that's where we operate now. Looking at our GDP, it's about to be rebased, and it said that real estate is going to overtake and become the third largest contributor. So what that means is that the land we have is being allocated to building. And I know last I checked, people cannot eat building so far. So is there something we can do to make sure that at least we by ourselves begin to help ourselves make that change? I don't know if you've looked at those figures, but it's worrisome for me because if you see we have vast land and the next thing people are thinking is, let me erect an estate here. And you're not thinking about how to feed the public. Is that a challenge for you? And how can we begin to look at these things and say, this is what the figures say, this is what we need to do, practically speaking now?
So let me just quickly say these two words, urban farming. This is a concept that, Oxfam in Nigeria has been pushing, and we actually have a pilot in Jos, in Plateau State, in Jos Metropolis, that's, we have a pilot on that. What urban farming simply does is you take whatever space, we encourage people to take whatever space they have in their residence, in the confines of their residence, and plant as much as they can. Now, this is an initiative that has clearly laid out steps that are easy to replicate. But it also brings to question, are the state governments willing to take the bold step to set aside land, like you said, agricultural land, and insist that it is used specifically for the purpose that it is set aside for, which is farming? Now, that is going to be a very bold decision, which is why I said it begs to wonder, are they willing to take that step? Are they also willing to make whatever little investments in resources, be it financial or trainings, in the residents of the state that have indicated interest in practicing this urban farming? It's a great way to eradicate food poverty, because what urban farming does is that it ensures that there's food on every table. That is one. And it also reduces the risk, that farmers face, rural farmers face when they go to the farm, issues of attacks, conflicts, and their farms getting vandalized and crops getting destroyed. It drastically reduces that risk because you're farming within the confines of your residence. But like I said, this is a tall order for the state government, and it begs to question. For instance, now, I would want to ask the Plateau State Governor, is he willing, since the pilot is in his state, is he willing to set aside land in his state and say that this land is for farming and it cannot be used for anything else aside from farming? Is he willing to implement, this decision?
Right.
Is he willing to set aside resources to support the people that will be willing to go into this urban farming? I mean, these are the issues.
Well, Peggy, very important point, and I really hope Nigerians listening right now can begin to ask their state governors the same question, because I don't think we lack land at all. But I want you to end with maybe practical tips for everyday Nigerians. I know the wife of the president had championed this cause, plant something. Everybody should plant something. And she came under a lot of attacks from people saying, "No, we need this in large scale, right? How much will my little tomato do, or my little vegetable? How much of the price of food in the market will it change?" So you talked about urban farming. I'm really interested in that. While we wait for government, what can individuals begin to do? I know it's an anomaly. The government should lead the charge in some sense, but hey, we don't have to wait for government all the time. So what can we begin to do practically as individuals now?
As individuals, as citizens of Nigeria, we also have a duty to hold the government responsible. You have a duty to actively engage your government, your policy leaders, your stakeholders, to tell them that this is what we want done in our communities. This is what we want to go into the budget. It's our responsibility as citizens, and we need to take it seriously, because if you don't do that, we're practically giving them the free hand to implement whatever it is, to design whatever kind of programs that they want to design, and just push it down to us. And it does not necessarily address the needs of specific demographics. So we need to engage them to push forwards our needs and our wants. You need to clearly speak, engage your policy leaders, even at the smallest level, at the local government level, at the lowest level. But we need to put ourselves together and come forward. And this is also something that it has been proven to work. You know, we work with a group of women who we call Obonge women, who actively engage the government. For instance, in Lagos State, and they have achieved a lot. They actively engage the Ministry of Agriculture, and they give directions on the kind of programs that they want, on what they need, and they have achieved a lot. The ministry is able to implement programs that speaks directly to the needs of smallholder farmers. So this is one of the things that we need to do. It's practical and it's doable. We just need to put ourselves in groups. We need to actively participate in decisions that affect our lives as Nigerians.
Right.
Thank you.
Peggy, very fantastic conversation we've had. I'll just leave it with this line from that report, that the global system as it is right now, with the colonial system apparently, still extracts wealth from the global south to the super rich 1% in the global north at a rate of $30 million an hour. This is just something for us to chew on, for our viewers and for everyone. There is still that system that extracts $30 million per hour from the global south. Peggy, we have to thank you so much. Peggy Meimaje is project coordinator, Oxfam in Nigeria. Thank you for your time, and I hope the next time we talk, we'll have a better story to tell. Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you.
We'll take a quick break now, and when we return, we have more for you on the show, so stay with us.